Hey, so last week we covered a few things about the fear of public speaking, where it comes from, how you get it, and when we kind of started to talk a little bit about how you get rid of it. And one of the first thing that we talked about last week was how a lot of the things that we do to help us reduce that nervousness actually causes nervousness. So if you just stop doing those things, a lot of the nervousness will go away, which is pretty interesting, by the way. This week, though, we're going to talk about how do you actually get rid of that public speaking fear. So just as a recap from last week, some of the public speaking fear that we talked about, it can come from like childhood memories, those situations where we had to get up in front of an elementary school or junior high school or high school or college and get up and present, and things didn't go as well as what we wanted them to, or could just be past challenges speaking in the business world. And then finally, some of the nervousness comes from what I call faulty preparation, doing things that we think are going to help us get rid of that public speaking fear or reduce the public speaking fear, but the things that we're doing are actually causing it, like memorizing a speech and different things like that. So if you didn't listen to last week's episode or watch last week's episode on YouTube, then make sure and go back and watch or listen to that first, because the stuff that we're going to cover this week will actually make a whole lot more sense, and it's going to work a whole lot better if you've done those other things. So just by the way, just so you know, I know like at the very beginning of each of the podcasts each week, I kind of tell you a little bit about our public speaking classes and where they're going to happen, that kind of thing. So just as an aside here, one of the things that you'll find about public speaking fear is the things that we're doing as coaches are the exact same things that I'm showing you here. So like I said, this is kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit and showing you what we actually do in our classes to help you reduce nervousness. That way you can actually do this. If you don't have access to one of our classes, then you could actually recreate this yourself and probably get a pretty good success, help you reduce nervousness. But like for instance, what we do, the reason why classes work so well, I mean, obviously I'm a little biased toward my own class because I created it, but a lot of public speaking classes work really, really well. And the reason why they do is because they help the people in the audience or the people that are going through that class string together a series of successes. So basically, like what we do in our classes is we help people change the way that they prepare for a presentation so that when they give it the way that we suggest, and it's a lot easier and it reduces their nervousness. They go, oh my God, that was way easy. That's anybody can do that, right? And so then once they do that once and have a success, then it's a whole lot easier now to have a second success and then a third success and a fourth success. And especially if you're in a classroom setting, you can string a lot of those successes. You can string together a series of maybe 6 to 8 different successes in a short period of time, so that by the time you walk out of the room, man, your confidence is really high. I mean, that's why that step-by-step, process works so well. So basically, the point of that is that once you have a series of successes, and you have one success after another, after another, after another, and each one of those times you've had 0 failures in between, then the anxiety, that nervousness just kind of fades away. It basically, it's just like what how the nervousness faded away after you had a few successes driving your car. If you think about it, that very first time last week, we kind of talked about how the very first time when you get on a freeway, you're all nervous and you're afraid, that, oh my God, there's not enough space to merge in between the other cars, and that nervousness kicks up. And nowadays, I mean, if you've been driving for a couple of years, and you go into that on ramp, even if there's just a very little space, you kind of stick the nose of your car in, and then the other cars kind of separate for you. It's like it's second nature now. It's something that happens almost automatically. And the reason why is because you've done that same thing day after day after day after day after day for years. And so if you kind of keep that in mind, that's the memories of your past failures, whether from childhood or from the business world, when they get replaced by memories of recent successes, that's where that confidence is going to grow. So I'm going to share with you in the very first part of this session, the absolute fastest way to overcome stage fright. And this is the key right here. If you understand this concept, it will help you speak in front of a group with very little anxiety. And the secret is that you have to lower the risk of failure for yourself. Basically, if you, a lot of times folks will say, "Hey, Doug, how do you overcome the fear of public speaking?" It's basically, it's just like any other anxiety that you experience. The more unknown that is there, the more of an unknown risk that is available, the greater that nervousness is going to be when you experience it, right? So the best way to tackle the most common fear is to lower the risk involved. You want to lower the risk of failure. So when we lower those unknown factors, we lower the threat, and we also lower the fear. The fear starts to diminish. So sometimes it even goes away entirely, by the way. So anytime you do something that is somewhat dangerous, your body is going to react in a negative way, right? Your heart rate is going to increase. You may get the sweaty palms and the queasy stomach. Things like riding a bicycle, driving a car, flying an airplane, firing a handgun. Those are all things that are somewhat dangerous for people without any experience doing those things. And by the way, if you've ever seen a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old kid riding a bicycle, you can typically kind of see the tension on that kid's face. It's the same kind of tension that you're going to see with a teenager that just got his or her driving permit. The very first time that a pilot, takes off, and well, actually, you can even experience this as a participant, as a passenger on an airline. That very first time, the very first time that you sit on a commercial airline and that plane takes off and it kind of catches your stomach, kind of how the G forces make your stomach kind of get a little tingly, and all of a sudden, if that's the very first time that you experience that, there's a good chance that you probably grab the armrest just a little bit tighter, right? So it's because it's those first time events are things that cause nervousness because we're unsure about exactly what's going to happen, exactly what's going to be going on. Police officers, they practice day after day after day to get proficient at firing their handguns because they want to be extremely confident if they ever do have to pull that weapon on somebody, right? The point is that the fear that we have is normal, and if you practice in the right way, the fear will go away. Basically those things that initial nervousness that we feel is it should be there, but as you practice, if you practice the right way, then over time that nervousness is going away. So here's the step-by-step process that we use in our classes to help people reduce fear, and this is what I suggest people do if you're experiencing that nervousness.